Hey everyone, Mr. Toast here. Just a quick reminder that you can watch the podcast live and interact with us and other viewers on twitch.tv/convictedtoast. I also wanted to mention that we have a Discord server where you can ask us questions and make suggestions about the podcast. Link in the description. Enjoy the episode. Hello everybody, welcome back to Mixed Media with Mr. Rager and Mr. Toast. This time around we're doing something a little different. Also not what we talked about on our last podcast, but that's
Not at
okay.
all.
Um,
Completely different.
yeah, we're gonna go ahead and talk about the highly anticipated sequel to Batman Arkham Origins. Uh, it's a little different. I'm sure everybody here is a great big fan of Gotham Knights.
Yeah, so this episode kind of came up out of nowhere. So we were planning on either doing the Amazing Spider-Man movies or whatever the other double feature was that we had mentioned in that episode. It's kind of escaping me right now. Our Raimi one that we did last week. And I was playing Gotham Knights. I had just downloaded it because it was free on PS Plus. And I messaged Keegan. I was like, "Hey, do you have Gotham Knights still?" And he's like, "Yeah." I was like, "You want to play it?" So we played through it together, quite a bit actually. We put probably over 20 hours into the game, I would say.
Yeah, I think we did all major side content, the whole story. The only thing that we didn't do was we
Get
didn't
the
try
platinum
Heroic Assault or get the platinum
or
trophy.
heroic assault. Yeah.
Yeah. But we did most of the side content. We didn't get all the collectibles, but we did get a fair amount of them. So
We actually went pretty deep into this thing. Maybe about, I don't know, 10 hours in, I was like, "Why don't we do this for our next episode?" I was like, "We haven't watched either of the movies that we were talking about. We've played this godforsaken thing for 10 hours. Why not do an episode over Gotham Knights?" And that's kind of where the idea came about. And I told Keegan towards the end of the game that I was going to preface this before we really get into the meat of this thing and say that this is not going to be a Gotham Knights pick apart hatred echo chamber that has plagued. Even when a game is there are games that are abysmally bad, and then there are ones that are just kinda bad, and they get into this echo chamber where everybody is only ever hearing negative things about them, and I would say there are redeeming things about this
yeah,
game.
like it definitely has its fair share of issues, bugs, and whatnot that you'll have. And the game did not get that much long-term support. I think the last update was like the beginning of 2023, if I'm not mistaken.
Been a while.
According to the last, I think I read the last patch note, and I think it was in January of 2023. But overall, like, we didn't have a bad experience with the game. The worst thing I can say about the game is it's painfully average, like very
Yeah, yeah.
just very like, the combat doesn't do anything special. The story it's all right. Like a lot of the gameplay elements, like the traversal, I would say is definitely the weakest part of this game. The traversal is bad.
That or the
uh
frame rate.
yeah, that too. Like the fact that we both played this on PlayStation 5 at a locked 30 frames per second, and we are probably actually getting about 20 frames per second. They're even going so far as to, like, there was one night where towards the end, before we called it a night on the game, I'm pretty sure I was dropping down to like 12 frames per second in some situations. It's not smooth. It doesn't look great. Some of the graphics, like, we're talking like, so of course, inevitably, we're going to talk about the Arkham games here, but Batman Arkham Knight came out in 2015 and still looks better than a lot of games that come out now. And this is very true for Gotham Knights as well, which looks like it was made for the PlayStation 3.
Yeah, and it definitely, I would say that it plays and feels and everything about this game kinda screams PlayStation 3.
Yeah.
And that's the generation that me and you kind of came up with that in, the PS2,
Yeah, like
and,
we probably started like mid PS2 era and then moved into 360 and PS3 era.
Yeah.
That's what we grew up on.
So for this is like kind of like a return to form because the superhero games we played, they were like this. It was your Marvel's Ultimate Alliances, your Spider-Man Shattered Dimension, Spider-Man Edge of Time, even Arkham Asylum. I would say, like going back, it hasn't. It is a PS3 game. It's a great PS3 game, but at the end of the day, it's a PS3 game.
Yeah.
You can tell. And that's what this game feels like. We're pretty sure I got 2 migraines while we were playing this because of the frame rate. It just, like, fucked with my eyes. Um, and I'm only saying that, I'm not trying to, like, be like, "Oh, the game gave me" I'm pretty sure it did, because I get migraines very rarely, and I had 2 in a week while we were playing this, and both times they started while I was playing it for a little
Yeah.
bit.
The interesting thing about it too, talking about how like it feels like a PS3 game in that era and that vein, is like coming down to it, it definitely has a lot of those same elements that came from the early from Arkham Asylum and from the Marvel Ultimate Alliance games, like having the momentum abilities very much feels like something out of Ultimate Alliance, especially because you can have all the different skills for your characters in those games. And it's something that's super weird because they're very inconsistent as well, depending on the character that you're playing. So, for reference, I played through as Tim Drake's Robin, and Michael here played as Red Hood. Um, who, let me just say that I think the way that the characters are written for this is very good, actually, like very accurate to their character counterparts in the comics. Um, Jason's a little iffy. I'll say that much. I don't mind it though. But
It
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, isn't it I kinda mentioned this a little bit, and I know all of the characters have, like, their own unique cutscenes. This game, like, I'm sure that they have, like, good reasons for whatever. This game, like, really panders to Jason Todd. Like, especially with having the League of Shadows be the ones that brought him back, he has the deep connection to them, whereas the other 3 don't. Like, they fought him in the past, but you know what I mean?
Yeah. Really quick, sorry. The Goblin Man, appreciate the follow. Thank you very much. Welcome to the toaster. Anyway,
Welcome in.
what's up?
No, I just said welcome in.
Yeah. um, but yeah, so as far as like gameplay elements go, it's fine. And it does pander a lot to Jason as well, as you were saying. Like it feels like this sort of started as a Red Hood game, and then somewhere in production it feels like somebody in corporate was like, hey, we want this to be 4-player co-op and we want you to add more members of the Bat family, and that kind of happened, which it still works. The characters are written in. I will say that I don't know anything about Nightwing or Batgirl's variations on the story because I didn't experience them and play them, but it's still like the stuff that we got whenever it would switch to like between the cutscenes, because you were hosting most of the time it was from Red Hood's perspective, but the few times that it was through Robin's perspective, like it's still, the writing still worked. It just feels like a lot of the writing really pandered towards Jason with the Lazarus pit, how many times they referenced that he died and was brought back with one, and it's very consistent throughout the story for him.
Yeah, it's very prevalent, and especially in the later parts of the game, the entire story revolves around the League of Shadows and the Lazarus Pits, and it really panders to him. I wonder if he plays the other ones, if maybe the Court of Owls stuff jumps out more at them.
That's what I don't know as well. And we also kind of have to get into that discussion as well when it comes to the Court of Owls. Uh, this is might be controversial for some people to hear, might not. I don't know the consensus on it, but both Mikey and I believe that the Court of Owls is a very boring villain for Batman or the Bat family as a whole, just because it kind of leads into the like the Illuminati shit that Marvel does.
Yeah, and it just the idea of an organization like that is just tricky, especially when you don't have, like, a particular figurehead because, you chop one head off of the Hydra and they'll just keep coming back. There's no real way to defeat a secret society like this, and even Batman couldn't do it. They've been around for thousands of years, and it's very boring. I think groups like the Court of Owls can be used well as like the driving force behind a better villain. But the Court of Owls in this story are just operating against everyone. They're not working with Raish, they're not working with Harley, they're not working with Freeze, they're not working with Clay, they're not working with anyone. They're the Court of Owls are their own
Yeah.
thing, and I'm just like, that doesn't make sense.
It kind of works against it too, because like you had the excuse when it comes to the League where they, in their situation with having Raish as their figurehead, basically in the comics you have the situation of Batman encounters Raish and the League. Bess Raish in combat, and then Raish is like, he's my heir, and Bruce is basically like, hey, leave Gotham alone. And that's like how you handle a league that isn't based in your city. But the Court of Owls being based in Gotham makes it so that they are impossible to remove from Gotham.
And the League has a cool ass fucking figurehead in Ra's al Ghul, even, and his daughter too, Talia. They're both really cool figureheads for that organization, and they work. But the Court of Owls, like Jacob Kane, who the fuck is that? And he doesn't. He's just a rich billionaire, and I get that
That,
speaks a little bit truer to life.
yeah, it
But
leads into the same thing with like the entire idea behind the Court of Owls is that it's all like rich people. But that's the other thing too, is how many rich people are in Gotham? Like, we know Bruce Wayne, and now according to this we have Jacob Kane. Who else?
apparently, fucking half of the city.
Yeah,
Like
like
there's
we see so many like court members. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. I get it, gameplay purposes and all that, but even in the comics I'm pretty sure it's still a relatively large group.
It is, and I know that there are rich families in Gotham, and I'm sure a lot of them are tied into the mob and things like that because you have the Cobblepots, um, and you have what's the one? I can't remember his name. Oh, the Elliots.
Yeah, yeah.
Hush. So you do have like rich groups, but like to my knowledge, neither group, because the Cobblepots have, maybe they were in it at one point, but like the Elliots, I don't know if they were in the court. You know what I mean?
Yeah. The
It's weird.
yeah, there's no way to know who was in the court and who wasn't as well, which is rather annoying, in my opinion.
What
So,
do you think the cutoff is for the court, like in terms of wealth? Like
uh,
when are you
the,
allowed in?
they're like, you have to have at least $1 million if you want to be in the court. If you don't have that, you're not in. That's
That's what. How do they pick? Like, is it
uh,
rich and powerful? Like, are there judges?
yeah. The other thing too is like, do they like basically eyeball somebody's net worth, and as soon as they cross the whatever their threshold is, they're just like, send them a letter in the mail with a seal, like a wax seal.
Where was the cutscene explaining this to me?
There
I
wasn't
need
one.
to know. I know, it's what I mean. I need to know. How do they select the members for the Court of Owls?
Yeah. It's weird. So
Eh,
as far as like the court and everything goes, like the villains for the story are fine, but I think we both had more fun with the side story villains than we did with both the League and the court.
Absolutely.
So they all get, actually only one of them gets set up through the actual main story. The other two are uncovered through doing side activities in the open world. So the first one is we have Harley, who is introduced in the story as she was apparently helping Bruce with his last case investigating in court. And for some reason, she decides to break out of Blackgate after helping you get the evidence, and then decides to start producing. First, it starts with a drug called Req. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah, it's
And
something like that.
then it leads into like a microbot thing that you put on your ear that basically like alters your brain chemistry and tells you to cause carnage or something. I don't really like the way that they set up her story to have her like basically mind controlling people. Like, it could work, it's fine. I just think the way they do it's kind of dumb. But overall, I think the boss fight that you have with her is pretty entertaining. Honestly, a lot of the boss fights in this game are actually kind of good too. I wouldn't say that there's any that are exceptionally like great, but there are some ones that are they're decent.
Um, I have one that I really like that we'll talk about later, boss fight. But I like the idea of having an evil Harley Quinn again. It's been a while since she's been used for bad.
Yeah, even
But
here, she technically, like, she actually wasn't a prisoner in Blackgate. She was just in there to do research, according to some of the, like, background profile stuff that you unlock later on.
it's yeah, I don't know. It's weird. My main complaint is I'm kind of just sick of Harley Quinn and her having to be in every project now. I get
Yeah,
she's popular. I
yeah.
understand that.
She's
But
also becoming an anti-hero very frequently in a lot of stuff, and I don't hate it. It's fine, like, but it's good to have a story where she is, like, back in that original role of being a villain.
she has become something for DC, and I'm gonna say it, and I think you might agree with me. She's DC's Deadpool.
I think, yeah, kinda, yeah. That makes
Look,
sense.
she's gotten an R-rated movie, Birds of Prey.
Yep.
She's in another R-rated movie, Suicide Squad. She's the comic relief. Kills people, not technically a bad guy, not really a hero either, is fucking crazy, talks to themselves, laughs all the time and tells jokes and cracks. She's literally the DC's Deadpool.
Yeah, that adds up actually. Um, it makes sense. It's also, it can also be used as a uh statement on feminism as well. So you have that multifaceted.
Yes. Yeah, her stuff isn't bad. It's I think the other 2 side stories, I enjoyed them more than that one.
Yeah.
Um,
So the other one that we have is Mr. Freeze, who in this universe I actually kind of like his backstory a little bit. There's a small element I don't like, but it's fine.
it's
Um,
dark.
yeah, so basically, as we all know, thanks to Batman the Animated Series and the episode titled was it Cold Heart or something along those lines?
Heart of
Heart
Ice.
of Ice. Um, so his motivation, Victor Freeze's motivation, is that his wife Nora is suffering from a chronic illness that is going to kill her, but he freezes her to give her time and give him time to find a cure for her before, you know, the whole incident of him um, having to keep his body at sub-zero temperatures to survive happens. But in this universe, he does end up curing Nora of her disease, but she is appalled by the crimes that he committed in her name to save her, and she leaves him. And it kind of leads him into a spiral of just being a full-on villain, just doing things to be evil.
And that is a really cool backstory. I found out that's also in a comic already,
Is it
and
really?
I'm guessing Gotham Knights took inspiration from that.
Okay.
But it is still a pretty fucking cool, and I like that they use that version of Mr. Freeze. He's a lot more unhinged
Yeah, they
and
also kind of lead
crazy.
into a way that he's like, I don't know, something about having gone through all of the trauma that he's had to put up with, and you know, being left at sub-zero temperatures for who knows how long. He begins losing his humanity is something that they also play with in this as well.
Yeah, and I really like that. He's like this. I don't know. He's more of a monster in this one than the sympathetic one in the other Arkham games, and then a lot of the recent interpretations of Freeze.
Yeah.
And then you have Clayface, and his side story is very campy, but it's just fun. It's just a fun little like detour from the main story where you fight Clayface.
Yeah, and I'd say overall, when it comes to, you actually fight Mr. Freeze twice. Both boss fights are, the first one's better, I think. The second one's weird because he has a spider mech frost machine. I don't know. It's very, very comic booky, but not very fun to fight.
Yeah, no, I agree, and the Harley one's good, and then I like the Clayface ones. It definitely feels like it's a Clayface boss fight.
Yeah, I like the story that they go with as well for this one, having Basil Carlo basically apparently like his brain got scrambled in his last fight with Batman, and he starts reenacting a play, but it's like he's changed the story a little bit to make it seem so Batman like threw him into like a turbine that like shredded up the clay and like scrambled his mind. I like the concept of that, and then I also like the way that they wrap the uh boss fight, because it's not just straight up you know, you're in an arena with them and you fight them and like that's it. They actually have a chase where you have to run from him on the bat cycle, and then you get him into like this blast furnace chamber that starts like making all the clay hardened, and that's how you beat him. Very cool,
So
and it works like thematically there.
it's like heavily rumored that Clayface is going to be one of the villains in Rob Pat's second movie.
Yeah, that's what
How
I've
would you
heard.
how would you prefer they did that? Do you want him to go like comic book campy and have him like actually morph into clay, or do you want something more reserved or like an in between, kind of like Sandman in Spider-Man 3?
I want something a little bit more reserved, I'd say, but I don't know if I exactly want like I don't want it to go like, oh, it's so strict that we can't really do anything with it, but I also want it to have a little bit of freedom to be interesting. I don't want it to just be like Chameleon from Spider-Man where he just takes people's faces. That's it could be boring.
I want to see a big clay monster, I think, at one point.
Maybe for the climax, but I'd like keep it suppressed until then.
Listen, you have Mr. Freeze and Clayface as the main villains. Rob Pat needs to defeat him at the end. He can't beat him. Freeze turns sides, freezes him.
Yeah, that
Now
could
clip
work.
that. Now clip that. If that's the way the movie ends, I said
I
it.
said it first. It was me.
They stole it. But yeah, the Clayface shit's cool. It's campy and it's fun. The main story, a lot of it is just like kind of go beat up this group, interrogate it. There's not a lot of really cool things. There are some cool reveals. So for this, for the main story, Batman's dead. He was killed by Ra's al Ghul, stabbed through the chest, in the Batcave.
And then the
Uh,
Batcave crumbled on both of them.
yes, and buried them. And basically, Batman was on the verge of discovering the Court of Owls. There's some shit going on with Dr. Kirk Langstrom. For those of you who don't know, that's the Man Bat. Made his comic debut in 1972. It was 72 or 73. Uh, sorry. Anyway, um, I like Man Bat. So, Man Bat's one of the villains in this. Well, kind of. It's I. That's one thing I didn't really care for in the main story was how they handle Man Bat, which we'll talk about that a
Yeah,
little bit later.
as we progress, and not to cut you off again, I believe Goblin Man's alternative account, Hoblin Man, just followed. Thank you.
Oh, thanks. 2 accounts. We appreciate it. Uh, So basically, what was I saying?
Something all about Man Bat. I don't know. I got so distracted.
Oh, Man Bat, right. Um, yeah, it's not handled well. We'll talk about that. So the Gotham Knights need to come together to solve Batman's last case, and you've got Red Hood who's using these pistols with non-lethal rounds, which is weird. Just use your fists like everybody else, or like other. I don't know. It's weird to use handguns even if they're not. It's just weird.
Yeah,
Maybe it's more
I think the
comfortable.
only reason that they're there is just to maintain a gameplay element. It also kind of leads into different gameplay aspects as well, because you were like much more reliant on your ranged weapon, whereas I was far more inclined to use melee.
That
Um,
is true.
because Robin's ranged is terrible. It's a slingshot compared to two handguns.
With non-lethal rounds. That's important.
Yeah,
The Gotham Knights don't kill people.
yeah. Apparently, in this universe, Jason gave up killing entirely.
So the four of them are operating out of the Belfry in Gotham, and they're working with Alfred. and they're trying to figure out I don't know, the shit with the Court of Owls and the shit with the League of Assassins. They're trying to figure some shit out. So, a lot of the game, like we were saying, is just kind of you doing detective work. Um, the Court of Owls gets introduced a little close to the midway point, and I was kind of like, God damn it, when I realized it was Court of Owls. Penguin is also. I want to talk about this real quick before we forget, because I don't know if we'll talk about Penguin again. Penguin in a lot of things is kind of being reduced to like this non bad guy like arms dealer for Batman and for it's weird because he's an arms dealer in this kind of information to the Gotham Knights. In Suicide Squad killed the Justice League, he's a merchant.
Yeah,
And in the comics right now, he's an informant to Batman.
yeah, it's interesting, especially the one for Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, because he's not doing that optionally. They put a bomb in his head.
So he's in the squad technically.
Technically.
So yeah, it's just interesting to see him in that. I kind of like that the Batman is keeping the villain thing. He's just a slime ball. Colin
Yeah.
Farrell is so good with that. So there aren't like a ton of really cool Batman villains in the main story. Not very many pop up. Like I'm trying to think of any.
Yeah, I mean, of course, we have Ra's al Ghul at the beginning of the game, who was very quickly incinerated by Talia al Ghul, and she's like, yeah, I left the League totally, 100%, not in the League anymore.
But like are there any other like other than the Man Bats? Like you know how like Arkham Asylum, Arkham City, Arkham Origins, Arkham Knight, pretty much every other game, as you're going through the main story, you ran into a different member of the Rogues Gallery that was kind of its own thing, but also serving the overall purpose. Think Killer
Yeah, that
Croc.
doesn't happen here.
It doesn't. It you're just fighting goons.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think, and I can't think of. Are there any?
No. All the like fun side characters that we end up fighting become side quests, and again, the only one that gets introduced out of those is Harley in the main story. The others are all pop up. Like literally the way that the Clayface one starts is you're going around the city during your nightly patrol, and some people start getting like assaulted by clay dudes that you have to beat up and take clay samples from. That's how that one starts. There's no cinematic, no cutscene, nothing to introduce the character, set him up, or he just shows up to show up. And it's definitely an issue. The like, at least the one for like Mr. Freeze makes a little bit of sense because they're stealing technology from Star Labs with this group called the Regulators, and like they're stealing technology to build a big old thing that's going to change the weather. That's like, that makes sense, it's fine, and they do it as a setup where Alfred like comes over your comms, he's like, hey, there's a robbery happening at Star Labs. It works fine. Whereas you have, again, Clayface who just shows up because they needed a third one.
I googled it to see if there are any that popped up in the main game that we might have missed. The Voice of the Court.
That isn't a real villain.
That's the only one in the main story other than Ra's al Ghul, Talia al Ghul, Man Bat kind of, and the Court. That's it in the main story. It's just
let's go ahead and get into the Man Bat thing. So at the beginning of this, at the beginning of this game, you are investigating the murder of Kirk Langstrom, who, for those of you that know the comics or played Arkham Knight, know that Kirk Langstrom is the Man Bat.
appeared in 1973.
Yes. Also appeared in Batman the Animated Series episode 2 on Leather Wings. Anyway, so when you know, obviously Mikey here being a fan of Man Bat, here's Kirk Langstrom, he's like, he's not dead, they're gonna do Man Bat, and I'm like, I don't know, he's dead. And as you get to the end of the game, this is like the second to last mission in the story. You go to Arkham Asylum, which has been abandoned because of some structural integrity issues or something or other. I don't know. The League's using it as a base and a lab, and they have this pod, and you're like, huh, that's weird. You go about doing this whole mission. It bursts open, Man-Bat appears, and we're like, oh shit, they actually did Man-Bat. I don't think it's Kirk Langstrom.
I don't think any of them are.
None of them, plural. There are several Man-Bats that become side content in the overworld.
It steals the plot from Arkham Asylum, where Joker was trying to create an army of 1,000 Banes, which works because you had fucking Bane in the game, and you showed what the Venom did, and it was a different version of it. It didn't just turn them into the exact thing. The Titans in Arkham Asylum, love them or hate them. I hate Joker Titan, but the other Titans are cool. Love them or hate them. It's a variation of Bane. It's not the same thing. They use a very different thing, and it warps their brain completely. Bane still has some control. He can talk.
Yeah.
Whereas in this, they're literally just carbon copies of Kirk Langstrom.
Yeah. I don't know if we get any lore or anything that read into it. I'm assuming that they were Talons. Let's also mention Talons really quick. So
do we have to?
Yeah, we may as well talk about that, but we'll get to it here in a sec, actually. So of course we're a little disappointed because Man-Bat is now side content. Hear me out though. As far as a gameplay element goes, at least you fight them like in combat, as opposed to the Arkham Knight variation of that side content where you just land on Man-Bat's back, take a blood sample, and then go find him later. It's at least an improvement gameplay wise.
I like to think that he does that in Arkham Asylum because he can't physically fight him.
That
It's like
makes
fighting
sense. Yeah, that's fair. But I don't know. At the same time, a lot of people critique that side mission in Arkham Knight just because you don't actually get to fight him. You just take a blood sample 2 or 3 times, administer your cure on the third, and then he's Kirk Langstrom again. Fun fact though, in Arkham Knight, after you catch Man-Bat, if you load up the game on October 31st, any year, he will have escaped from the police, GCPD. Yep, he'll have escaped from lockup. Another fun fact is if you go back to the lab where you first find his wife and everything that died, her body isn't there anymore. Fun fact for you. Anyway,
I love Man-Bat. Man-Bat was created. I'm gonna nerd out for a minute. Man-Bat was created because Batman decided to become more gothic and more horror in the early 70s. They brought back Scarecrow. Scarecrow wasn't in the comics for over a decade before that because of the campy TV series from the 60s, and I love the Adam West series. But they wanted to do something darker. Man-Bat was one of the first villains they introduced. You know what also was introduced in the early 70s, Keegan?
what?
Arkham Asylum. You know what else? The League of Shadows and Ra's al Ghul, all in the span of 5 years, because they wanted to take that darker turn. And Man-Bat is that. That's why I kind of like it in Night a little bit, because it does have that horror element. He's not something that Batman can kind of fight head on, so he's trying to cure him.
Yeah. Additionally, they use Man-Bat in his introduction in Arkham Knight as a jump scare. You don't even know he exists. I'm pretty sure the only thing you get is, I think Aaron Cash makes an offhand remark saying something about seeing something flying around one of the islands of Gotham, and it's like, huh, that's weird, don't know what that is. And then you literally just like go to grapple up a building and he fucking jumps out and scares you.
It's awesome. It's awesome. It's a great callback to that period in Batman comics too.
Yeah. Which that's another thing too, is like as Batman's gone on, like we went from an element where, you know, he was introduced, you get into the 70s when they start introducing more of the gothic stuff, and then I kind of like where we are right now, where it's got the gothic aesthetic, but it's also leaning into this like neon soaked streets, like plus gothic. It's this crazy mixture, and I love it.
Yeah, it was seen especially well in Robert Pattinson's The Batman.
Yeah, they use that like panel where it's like a something that kind of looks like Times Square. They use that like twice. You see it once during like the morning very early on, and then you see it at night as well, and it looks great. Um, but yeah, that's another thing I do want to mention about this game as well, is this version of Gotham doesn't really stand out all that much. Like, you play like Arkham Knight and you play Arkham City, and like it feels bathed in this history. Like, there's a lot of like history you can find just off of like architecture, off of posters and billboards and stuff that they put up. Where in this game, the most that I think you see is you drive past the Monarch Theater.
Something in the way. Yeah, it doesn't really look like Gotham. It I don't know.
The only thing that I really liked was that they have the you have the cemetery and like Arkham Asylum up in the northern part of the map, just kind of like in this little corner by itself. I like that area. It's all right. But again, the only thing that sucks more about this not really feeling like Gotham is traversing it. Like I said earlier, the traversal is the weakest mechanic of the game. All four characters get their own unique traversal mechanic. Jason's doesn't really make sense, sort of. They give him mystic powers because of the Lazarus Pit, I guess. I don't know.
He can jump in midair.
Yeah, he can mystic jump. And then Robin decides to use Justice League resources to teleport himself 20 feet every 8 seconds.
And I said, why don't all four of them fucking do that?
Yeah. Batgirl is the only one that gets a cape to actually glide, and then Nightwing has a Fortnite glider.
Hey, you know what? So we talked about the man bats. Let's talk about the talents. Let's rip the band-aid off.
Yeah.
Put some salt in the wound.
So
Talons are dumb.
yes, I agree. The way that so basically, to cover the Talons, we also have to talk about the court's motivation in this story. So basically, the court has persisted. They did. The court has persisted for who knows how the fuck long in Gotham. And the whole thing is like they have this resource that they use that's sort of like Lazarus to keep them alive. Their plot here is they're clashing with the League of Assassins, because the League of Assassins has a Lazarus Pit and the Court of Owls doesn't, and they're running out of the resource that they use to stay young. So Talons are a side effect of basically taking a corpse and giving them this not Lazarus Pit stuff. They basically lose their minds and they're just mindless zombies. So I don't know, do with that information what you will.
There was a spider on my leg. I didn't want to interrupt. I was freaking out. I got it. There's a spider. I looked down. He was sitting right there. Oh my god.
All right.
I saw my life flash before my eyes. Holy shit.
That's, you know what that is? That's the universe being angry that this isn't an Amazing Spider-Man episode.
Yeah, it might be. Holy fuck. I had something I was gonna say about the court. Oh, Jacob Kane. I don't give a shit about Jacob Kane. Fuck that old man. He means nothing to me. He's nothing but a stain. I don't know who that is. Why not make somebody I know a member?
The
Somebody prominent.
the only thing that's familiar about the name Jacob Kane is was it Catherine Kane or whatever Batwoman's alter ego is?
Hold on a minute.
What?
Where is it?
What are you doing?
Hold on. I'm gonna have to describe this for the audio listeners. This is a long box. Oh, my camera's not picking it up. Hold on. Hold on. My camera's picking it up. Changing my video background for this. I'm breaking it out. This is a long box. Completely filled. It didn't, dude. All right. Audio and visual listeners. This is a huge long box full of Batman comics. And do you know what? I couldn't tell you who the fuck Jacob Kane is.
This is very humorous.
The stupid video background wouldn't pick it up. The point is, I own a shit ton. I love Batman. I love Batman comics. I own more Batman comics than for any other pretty much comic, I guess. Even The Walking Dead. I have the whole run of The Walking Dead.
He has the
I
entire run of Shadow of the Bat, just so you know.
Yes, I do have. I was just getting ready to I was just getting ready to say that. I've got every issue of Shadow of the Bat, 1 to 93, and I've gotta tell you, I have no fucking idea who Jacob Kane is, like, at all. I I Googled him, and apparently he's in, like, certain iterations of Batman. I don't know who that is. So, like, for the entire time that, like, he was in the story, I didn't feel any kind of attachment, like, the characters were hurt, that he was a member.
Yeah.
Okay, so
We
his
also
first
get
appearance oh, sorry, I didn't mean to
you.
I was just gonna say, the first appearance of him was in 2011.
I think that's when the entire court was introduced, if I'm not wrong.
So, his whole thing is that he's always in the court, I'm guessing?
I have no idea.
It is.
2011 was when the court was introduced.
Um, well, he's a member.
Right.
Let me check.
If that's the case, a little over 13 years ago, a mistake was made at DC Comics.
Yeah, again, it's a cool idea on paper. I think it was 2011. I think it was because it's Batman Volume 2, Number 1, which, yep, 2011, September 21st. They were introduced the same year.
Yep. So, regret. I'm sorry, whoever wrote the Court of Owls and thought you were onto something cool. Wrong.
Here's a better idea. Make it somebody that we've known for years.
Yeah, that'd make
Somebody that
a.
we trust.
Yeah, imagine if it was Gordon. That would be a fucking twist.
Or Alfred.
Yeah. Either one,
And
especially because Alfred could also like be in a position where he is basically doing propaganda and like pushing Bruce into a wrong lead.
that would piss so many people off.
Yeah, it'd be
That'd
like
be
that.
like the Captain America.
The
Is
Hail
that what you're gonna
Hydra,
say?
yep, Captain America Hail Hydra moment.
Oh my god, they would freak. And he was, like, motivating him all this time.
Yep,
Oh, it's gotta be an Elseworld story.
that'd be
DC,
cool.
get on that. That's an awesome idea.
Um, yeah, so that's yeah, Talons are dumb, as we've discussed. Jacob Kane is I don't know.
He's whatever.
Yeah, so the only thing that I have, this is more nitpicking than anything. The design for Batman in this game, we only see it for about 2.5, 3 minutes. It's terrible. I don't know who designed that. It's bad.
It's not great. His character, though, especially in the end, I'd say he's pretty good.
Yeah.
He's pretty good, man.
I just don't like the way that they did the cape, because it, like, when you think Batman, you think of the cape being like very long, almost like a trench coat to a degree.
I normally just think of, like, the bat nipples. Like, I wanna design those, like Joel
Uh-huh.
Schumacher did,
Uh-huh.
and then I get to the cape.
Uh-huh.
And the cape it could be whatever, but as long as you got the bat nipples, that's what matters.
I'm gonna go ahead and take away your bowl of member berries.
No, I hate the cape too. I think it's really bad.
Because it's like
And
it has two clips on the shoulders, whereas like usually you think of Batman, you think of the cape, and the cowl and the cape are they're in unison. It's one piece.
okay, I've got something with capes, and I wanna know if you feel the same.
Okay.
Do you only ever notice them when they're not there or if they're bad, and then when they're there, you don't even notice that they're wearing them? Because like, the only one I even notice is Superman, but, like, Batman, my mind just completely blanks out that every comic I read, I just blank out that he's wearing a cape.
It depends, because there are some artistic depictions of Batman using the cape in a certain way. Like there's one where like he has the whole like cape, it's kind of flowing backwards over his entire body, and I think that's a fantastic piece. There are moments where yes, I can say that it does kind of disappear from the character, but in like some, it depends on who is doing the artist depiction of it, that I think it is very important.
I'm weird on capes. I don't
Um,
know.
Controversial take. Fortnite has not released a single good Batman skin. That is all.
I see. They have a good Bloodsport skin though. I've got that
That's
Bloodsport
fair.
skin.
The only one that's like half decent is the Batman Who Laughs skin, but I don't like the Batman Who Laughs at all. So
It's not great. It's fine. Like it's whatever. We're getting off. We're getting off
yeah,
track.
we're getting off track. So yeah, the Court of Owls, bad. Let's rehash a little bit. Court of Owls, bad. League of Assassins,
They're
they're the League
fine.
of Assassins. They're fine.
They're what they are in everything.
Yep. Um, let's go over some of the small gangs that we have. So we have the Regulators, we have the Freaks, we have the Mob, who doesn't really fit in this story at all. There's no mob figures at all besides Cobblepot, who is not quite a villain. He's more of an informant in this one.
The mob also doesn't work here like that.
Yeah,
It can't. There's a reason there are so many Batman stories where when the end of the mob is ushered in, especially the Long Halloween, when the end of the mob is ushered in, that's when, or sorry, when the end of the mob is here, that's when like the supervillains come in. They kind of coincide with the mob leaving, and it's
yeah,
fine to have the mob there, but like, what? Who's running them? Is it Maroni? Is it Falcone? It's not Penguin,
yeah. Um,
so I have no idea.
yeah, they don't really make sense to be there. And we've already talked about the League. We've talked about the Court. I think that's all the major players in this game. Um, and three of those, being the Regulators, the Freaks, and the Mob, aren't relevant. They're there to be side content at the end of the day. Whereas like the League, of course, and the Court play into the main story, which makes sense and is fine. Um, I don't know. It's like we said, we're not trying to like nitpick the game apart and tear it down or anything. Like it's fine. It's a painfully average, maybe even slightly mediocre game. That has moments that shine. Like maybe not like a I can't see, it's blinding me bright shine, but it has moments that are good.
So let's talk about one of, well, I don't know how you feel about this, but one of my favorite moments in the game is the second to last boss fight where you fight Bruce. And Talia has been killing him, throwing him into the Lazarus pit, pulling him out, killing him again, throwing him in to kind of destroy his mind. And you have to fight Batman, and you get to bring him back, and he's stabbed through the stomach. He's like, "Don't throw me in the pit again."
Yeah.
And he leaves to sacrifice himself. He records one last video for the Knights, which I love that video. It's awesome. One of the best moments in the game is when that video is being recorded and Bruce is giving his final message to the four of them. Really cool. I really like him handing off the torch like that to them. It was really cool, and a lot of people are like probably gonna be pissed because Batman's the final boss or whatever. But it's a comic book game, and it is totally a comic book story to kill Batman over and over again to warp his fucking mind and
Yeah.
turn him. That is a very comic book plot.
Yeah. I think one of my favorite things about it too is in the context of it, like it's not just a straight up boss fight. There are moments where it pauses and you have to grab Bruce and you have to try and like get through to him and talk to him. And this is one of the things I really wish that the main story was 4 players for this instead of just 2, because it would have been really nice to have like a moment where like all 4 of the characters have to grab him and have to talk to him and like try and break his mind out of this. Because the one thing that I wanted to do before this podcast that I ended up completely forgetting about and not doing was I was going to go back through and watch like a video to see what Bruce's final message is to each of the characters individually. Because in our playthrough, the cutscene that we got was Robin basically like, Bruce, we need you. This is like, Gotham needs you. We're not ready yet. And then he says, like, basically he says, Gotham, you guys are ready for Gotham. And he specifically says to Tim, "You've always been smarter than me," which we theorize, because we didn't look it up, that he says something different to each of the characters that plays to their strengths. Meaning, like, if you were to have Jason do it, he'd say, "You were always stronger than me," like that kind of thing. So again, I think after this podcast, I'm gonna go look it up. I suggest if you're interested, you should do that too. But that's the only real issue I have with this final boss is that it doesn't involve all four characters, unless you specifically decide to go back through and do it yourself, or you're playing with somebody else who's playing one of the characters that you didn't play yet.
Yeah, it's a really good cutscene. I like the fight with Bruce. That's probably my favorite fight in the game. And then you fight Talia at the end. She's the final boss. The Court of Owls kind of just fuck off.
Yeah.
They just leave, and there's nothing really you could do
Yeah.
because they're a secret society.
Yeah, we get our final monologue from the characters where they're basically like, the league has left Gotham, but as for the Court of Owls, you can't hide anymore. We're coming for you. That's basically the final message, which hopefully wasn't an attempted sequel bait, because I don't think people would buy it.
No, no, I don't think so. It, I don't know. It's not bad, and it does have a lot of problems, but I think, at least me personally, I enjoyed my time with
Yeah,
it.
I'd say overall I enjoyed my time more than I disliked it. I mean, yes, of course there were pain points and there were moments that just didn't work or were drawn out. Especially the first time that you go after the court, you get thrown into this torture room, and I'm pretty sure we both died like at least 9 times.
Quite a few times,
Yeah.
like an embarrassingly large amount of times.
And that's not to say that like maybe we were rushing a little bit or something, but it was definitely dumb because it's like 3 or 4 different conveyor belts with a random ass trap on it that you have to get past. Kind of sucked.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. And shit, what was I gonna say? I just had something I was gonna say about the end of the game. Oh, um, do you want to talk about the end credits?
Which part?
The costumes.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, because we got different endings because we played different characters and there's different cutscenes that played. Which I don't know what yours was exactly, but for Robin, he basically does a whole like public screening of this video where he is like, we're like your new defenders. Court of Owls can't hide, all this, and you get your knighthood suit unlocked, which I think all the knighthood suits look really good as well.
I 100% agree. And it was, I don't know. I really like the way that they did the ending. I thought it was a good way to kind of wrap it up. You don't really get closure on the Man Bat stuff or the Court of Owls stuff. The only storyline you really get closure on is the League of Shadows, uh, which is something that I would say is kind of a weakness to this game in terms of that, because you've got every other Batman game which wraps up pretty much everything, maybe leaves a loose end or two, but everything else is kind of wrapped up.
Yeah, I also want to theorize something with you.
Okay.
Since we're here. So when it came down to of course, I'm pretty sure this game was originally slated for a 2021 release date, if I remember right, and then got pushed back to 2022.
Yes.
I want to say a lot of other people have theorized this from what I've seen, but do you think that the game was supposed to be more grindy and more live service, but they saw the performance of Avengers the year before and said, "Oh, no," they delayed it and they tried to strip it down to a point where it wasn't as grindy and not live service?
I think it was, but I also at the same time think it was also originally single player.
Yeah, I think to a degree as well. Part of me feels like this originally started as a mobile game. It's a bizarre theory, but the amount of like crafting materials and stuff that you find in the game, that's a little more than what you'd get for a live service game. Like there's like 13 different elements and stuff, and the only games I can think of that have that many different crafting materials are usually mobile games.
I mean, that's fair. I mean, it could be.
No,
Yeah, just oh, good.
like again, it's just theorizing. We won't know anything. We probably won't know anything, but usually, 10 years down the line, somebody gets some information and we'll know a little bit more about what happened in the behind the scenes development. Seeing as that happened with Arkham Origins and stuff like that. So,
Which Arkham Origins is a great game. I just wanted to say.
yeah,
Okay.
DC's Genshin Impact.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong.
But yeah, I do think it was originally going to be more live service, and they stripped it down. They pulled back a little bit and said maybe not. I don't hate the game though. And honestly, going into a situation where it felt like you didn't ever have to craft any, like whenever it came down to it, like you'd go out and do patrols for a night, you come back, you have a new suit to craft, and that happened every single time until we hit max level. And then it wasn't crafting a suit every other patrol or anything like that. But I do think that it was originally going to be more.
I think so too.
And honestly, I think the fact that they did stop, hesitate, and pulled back and didn't do a full-on live service game with more grinding and stuff, I think honestly made it a better game in the end.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree completely. I think it really worked really worked for it instead of against it, and it is going to be a game that will go down in infamy as not being very good or whatever. But I if you can get it for cheap or free like we did,
Yeah,
but
I'm
even
pretty sure
cheap,
if
I
you
would
have
say
PlayStation Plus right now, it is like free to download.
it's worth it.
Yeah,
Even just to play it once.
give it a shot. Play it with a friend. If trick them into playing it with you. Again, we can't talk about Heroic Assault because we didn't play it. But from what I saw, they have Starro for the first set, which sounded cool, but we didn't actually play it. And there's something else I wanted to say. What was it? The other thing here as well. Quick critique of Avengers. At least in this game, every character feels different. Whereas in Avengers, it felt like every character felt the same.
Yeah, no, I agree. They all do feel like different people,
They
and they play differently too.
the way that they play, like you used guns way more often, and your abilities were more targeted towards like taking out like multiple, whereas Robin's were much more like targeting one specific guy or something like that, and it felt a little bit more diverse, especially because Robin had more stealth capabilities. Like we would go in and we had like the big thugs and I could like just choke them out, didn't have to worry about them. It was cool. Just to have that dichotomy where it's not just, hey, we're both just smacking this one guy.
And to quote Danny DeVito, I started blasting. That was my gameplay.
There were straight up moments where it'd be like, no bonus objective, just starts fucking capping everybody with rubber bullets.
There were times Keegan was doing like a silent takedown, and I would start fucking blasting him.
Yeah, literally, I got him in a headlock, choking him out, and you're just shooting him in the head.
It was fun. The game gave you a lot of freedom. There were a lot of people that we took down that we were like, that guy's dead.
Yeah.
The
That's another
physics
thing.
engine
They
was
forgot to animate you like hooking a rope to people's legs and shit. So if you pull them off of a building, they just fall all the way down. And there is no excusing it. They are fucking dead.
yeah. No, they definitely are. And we kind of joked around with that a lot, but it wasn't a bad game. It was pretty fun, I would say.
Yeah. Overall, give it a 6.5, maybe a 7. We'll see.
2.
2.
I'd give it like a 6 or a 7. Probably 6.
Yeah, like again, it has elements that are good, elements that are pretty bad, but overall, I think the cons are not nearly as bad as the pros.
No, I 100% agree.
Yeah.
Uh,
I also like the reveal there at the end with the Batman's like recordings for contingencies and stuff, where basically it's like if Condiment King kills me, recording different variations of his final message for depending on what circumstance killed him.
you never know when Condiment King might come back to kill you, Keegan.
Yeah.
It's a very real possibility.
What's he gonna do? Raise my fucking blood sugar with ketchup?
I He might. He might just do that. Um,
If
I think that's oh good.
if uh if you know fruit blended up is a smoothie, um then that means that ketchup is a smoothie. Man is dumbfounded. Can't
I
believe I just said that.
You know what? Sure. We'll go with that.
Yeah,
Ketchup
but
is a smoothie.
I think we've pretty much covered the next best thing to happen to Arkham Origins, and by that I mean a sequel that was not actually a sequel and was just okay.
Just okay. So thank you guys again so much for tuning in to another episode of the Mixed Media Podcast. I know this one wasn't as long as some of the other ones, especially our last
Definitely
one.
wasn't as long as our last one.
Yeah, our last one was like 3 hours long. Definitely not as long, but this one just didn't have as much to talk about. It was more of just a fun episode for you guys. Make sure you guys join the Discord where you can ask us questions about the podcast, make suggestions for the podcast, or even get a sneak peek at what the next episode is going to be when we announce it in the Discord.
Yep. If you haven't already, go ahead, check us out on YouTube, Spotify. You can always watch the VOD here on Twitch, and also stick around to see whenever we go live with the next one. That's pretty much it from us. Yeah. So you all have a fantastic and 4-stick. That's the next episode.
No, please. No, I can't do it.
You guys have a fantastic day, night, evening, morning.
July the 4th.
Yep, July the 4th, Tuesday the 17th. You all have a great one.